Hello, welcome back. So here's the latest version of my EMP. A few tweaks here and there, mostly color and balancing, as I was mentioning before. I think you can see the magic quite clearly now. Generally, I've done that darkening of the environment, so I'm still hoping once we've got the anticipation effect on the drone that becomes a little less obvious, but at the moment it's a bit slower. So I've done that from while the camera's pulling out, it kind of darkens down already. And then this front edge effect with that emissive noise, I've just contrasted that up to the point where it's only just visible on the outside and it's quite bright at the base. So just to add a little extra punch on that expansive moment. So I think it looks pretty cool. Let's go ahead now and just add a few of those extra things I've been talking about. So if we come back here, let's get the anticipation effects in first. And then I also want to add a displacement fake refraction like we've done with the others, which is particularly important on these more spherical type effects that feel like they should be refracting the environment. So for starters here, I'm just going to take this drone we've got and get just the emission pass. Right, so we have that, and I'm hoping that does pretty much the job of adding our anticipation. So let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to start just by boosting it a bit. We need at least a base for what we consider it being bright. So something like that. And then I also want to key it on. So let me put down another one here, and we'll just say maybe from like 145 it's invisible, and then it appears after the zoom out. So it's pretty much full strength by around 165. So something like that, and let me just go and grab one of our rectangles here. Alright, so that the internal glow kind of switches on. I'm going to extend this a little bit. So we have this glow kind of coming on over a few frames. Something like that. And then I'm also going to take one of our glows and we'll get a glow on here as well. Now this, more than any of the other layers I've got, probably do need quite a strong glow, and you need to be really careful with glows because they can very quickly turn into something very cheap looking, and I fall into that trap as well often. A glow is very useful for bringing elements together and making them feel cohesive. You never want them to feel like you're looking at a glow. So case in point here, if you were to just look at this, it's not obvious that it's got a glow on it, really. But when you have it on, it's kind of helping bring everything together. If one of these layers was boosted like this, that you kind of see that kind of thing quite a lot, and it's not good. So very subtle here on this glow. And another cool thing we can do is, well, I'm going to start quickly just by using a ellipse. And let's just be a little bit more selective of what we're using here for the anticipation. So try and make it feel much more internal. So if you see what I'm doing there, I'm just using a circle, a soft circle, and just trying to take away some of the edges so that we're left with a little bit more of an internal feel to this glow. So something like that. And then another cool thing, and I'm doing this all before the glow now because I want the glow to react to all of these changes, is we can take another color corrector here and just, if I right click on the gain, modify width, I can choose some kind of noise. So it's just like a motion effect in Houdini that will apply a noise to this color corrector. So if I go over to the spline here, we can see what that looks like. And at the top of the same color corrector here in modifiers, that effect will be added as a tab over here. So if you want to add some procedural noises and stuff to an object, remember to find the controls for that modifier up here. So we can increase the overall value, choose a different seed, have it be more intense. That's kind of adding roughness. And then we have a speed. So I basically want this internal effect here to kind of shake and flicker like it's building up to something. So something a little bit like that. So this color fades on and then it's like starts shaking and the lights start to increase and decrease until it explodes. And we can just leave it going. So just trying to find a value here that makes sense. Okay, so something like that. Kind of have to experiment again once you've got the rest of the effect in there. So something like that. Then we put this through the glow again. We get a little bit of shake. And then we can just burn this on or add it on with a boolean. Let's just put a final grade in here as well. Right, so now we're looking at the temporary drone I have here. But what we actually will be seeing is this whole network. So I'm gonna, for now, just take my reconstructed drone just so we can see if this layer is working, and use this instead. So we get rid of that emission pass. So that's our diffuse, indirect, and direct reflect merged together. So there's our drone with no emission, and here's our new emission. Yeah, so something like that. It's probably a little bit too fast at the moment, the flickering, but I think that kind of works as an anticipation. So it's gone cold now after its decloak, and then it starts to heat up again, and then bam, we get the effect. So I'll check that one more time, and then we'll quickly add some refraction. It's a really nice tone there, especially because it's this dark metallic object. So these nice blue looking lights really stand up quite nicely. And that shift of the environment down slightly before a super bright shockwave appears is also very impactful. So pretty happy with this. Lots of room here. Once again, we could knock everything down a notch and not make everything so over the top bright. Say except for one element, so we could really highlight the electrical element and just knock everything else back. At the same time, as I said when we were starting this effect, many films and shows benefit from having an overly simplistic shockwave. So there's benefits as well to removing probably some of these passes and just having some kind of refractive, slightly blue sphere expanding. But I like all the extra detail we're getting here. This volumetric stuff around the light looks pretty cool. We're getting a nice hard bright edge on the interaction. Obviously loads of interactive stuff going on with the electricity as well. And then at this point at the end of the shot it gets super bright, and it's probably a good point to maybe extend the shot a little bit and make sure it whites out. I've already done a test of going to like say 240 and seeing if my passes would manage to stick it, so I still need to experiment a little bit more with that. But the idea always was that there would be 1, 2, 3 pulses, and then on the third pulse, as it hits camera, the shot pretty much whites out. So here's our new version with the anticipation glow, and I think that looks pretty good. Only thing we're missing now is the refraction, and then a few extra touches which I'll probably go over in our recap video, but things like just adding some camera shake here and doing the white out. Okay, so let's pick a good frame, and then I need my normal pass here. I'll put down another BMP. So what I'm looking for here with this fake refraction is just getting an alpha that has a good transition between the edge of this effect and the middle, because we can use that as a strength multiplier for our displacement. So question is where to displace. We could displace before. I think in our magic shield effect we displaced before the shield effects actually came on. So that would look something like So if you see what's happening here is we're bending the image based on this white to black ratio. So that's what's making it feel like it's really bulging, because it's more displaced in the middle and less displaced on the edges. So what's cool is we can affect that over here just with the bitmap and make it a much sharper looking edge by clamping these values. Okay, but we don't really want that. Okay, so we could do that and then merge the effects on top, or we could just go ahead and displace everything. And because a lot of the effects are actually on the inside of the sphere, my initial thought was to just displace everything, because then we would get that warping in the electricity and stuff as well, which I still think is probably a good idea. There you can see we're getting some pretty extreme refraction. So let me move this over here. Okay, we don't want the displace to completely interrupt the rest of the effects here, so we need to be a little bit careful where we position it and how strong it is. That's very strong, so let's see. Maybe something just like that. And the other thing is we need to see how it looks after this has passed through camera, because it's probably, yep, just going to flick off over one frame. So let's see this again. It's super quick, but there is a jump. After the shockwave passes camera, there's a little jump. So here we are refracting, and then pop. It's past camera, so we're suddenly not refracting anymore. So I'm going to go a little bit more extreme here, and then we need to keyframe this to match every single one of our pulses. So let's do that. Let's say here it's strong, animate, and just before that moment where it pops, we'll have it faded off already. So it's only super refractive at the start, and by the time it hits camera, that refraction's gone. And after that we can switch the refraction back up. Look for our next pulse. Make sure we put another key there, and then just do the same thing. So a little bit of a pain, but definitely worth it, I think. Okay, now there should be no awkward popping. So there we get a nice refractive edge, and that image should just warp back to normal in time for our next pulse. So there's a refraction again. Yeah, that looks okay. So just looking at this now frame by frame, I think I may have gone overboard on dimming the environment down. So I could be adjusting that as well. And another thing I remembered is I'm just using the raw render here of the drone, but I've actually brightened the drone up in this effect here. So once I've taken that out and I have the actual effect in here, it should stand out a little bit more. So general balancing there. But this pretty much wraps this effect and the comp. Just a few of those tweaks I was mentioning to finish the shot. And in the next video, we'll just recap the Houdini and the comp side of our EMP. And in so doing, we'll be ending week 8. So let's just let this play out so you can see what it's looking like at the moment. It's really struggling. There we go. Yeah, so that works pretty well. I'm quite happy with both the anticipation glow and the refraction. It's a little bit over the top, I think. Just a bit. But it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to watch. But definitely you could get away with knocking this effect down a little bit. But it does show off a lot of interesting elements, a lot of interesting techniques, and it's definitely going to test your ability to balance layers together and make sure you use your eye really well to get that balance just right. So with that, let me end this video and I'll see you guys in the recap.